Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Lubell. I'm the Executive Director of the International Center of Photography. I would like to welcome you to our new Bowery Museum location. ICP is many things. We are a museum, as we are sitting here. We are a public forum. We are a school. And we're an archive. And I think this combination of these four elements is really what makes ICP a unique offering. Understanding our history, exhibiting and dialoguing with each other in an open forum, and really sort of asking important questions. And I think this moment in time, we need to be asking questions, and we need to be challenging ourselves. We cannot be complacent. And that is why when Adam Broomberg sent me an email this year about hosting this conversation, I said, of course, this is exactly the types of conversations I hope that we would be doing at ICP. I'm going to read you just something that I sent out to the ICP community at the beginning of this year. I, like many of you, I think, were affected by our presidential elections, and I felt that here I am sitting with a dynamic space on the Bowery, an active school in which we have close to 5,000 students, an archive that has our history, and a place to have a conversation. And we better be having conversations about the world we live in. So I'm just going to read you just a few quick things that I said, and then we'll start this evening. I said in this statement, throughout our history, ICP has been dedicated to the idea that images are powerful tools for communication and understanding and a force for social change. This has never been truer or more necessary than it is at this critical moment in history. As we have since our founding in 1947, we've continued to use our resources in the school, museum, collection, and archives, community and public programming to oppose racism, anti-Semitism, thank you, sexism, homophobia, and prejudice of every sort. We recognize that globalism and technology have a human cost that cannot be ignored. We support both traditional and social media, but understand that both must be scrutinized. We believe in truth. When so much is happening that we all need to be questioning and understanding, I invite everyone to be part of the ICB community and engage in our mission. And that is why, those are experts on what I said, but this is why I thought this conversation tonight would be so important. And I'm so excited to welcome Mitra, who will be joining us, who is the curator of Hands Off Our Revolution. And I'd like to thank Adam Broomberg for reaching out to me to start this off. And now let's begin our conversation. So, Brooke, thank you.
So we wanted to thank you for coming here today. This is the second workshop for Hands Off Our Revolution. My name is Brooke McGowan. I have known Adam Broomberg, who is one of the original two founders of this organization, for the last 10 years. And I've admired his work. We worked together in London for a long time about the question of the image, of archive, of the political stakes, of what truth is supposed to mean in image making. And this organization, for those of you who don't know, came about very organically. Adam started he started to work as a professor in Hamburg at the Kunstuniversität. And he was outraged by the US election, by Brexit, by a number of other indicators of the rise of right-wing populism in Europe in general and the world at large. And so he began a poster-making project with his students. And I was very supportive in him doing this, but it slowly evolved over time, and I say slowly because to everyone who's been part of this process, it feels slow, but actually we've done quite a lot in a short amount of time. We've been very lucky to have a lot of support from the arts community and people outside of the art community. And so by December 27th, Adam sent me an email saying, will you sign this petition? Will you become part of our core group? And will you take this forward? So just to let you know who we are, there are 7 of us in 4 cities. Okay, I've got that right. 4 cities who comprise the core group. There is one in Chicago. We have several members here who are part of the steering group in New York. Adam is between Hamburg and Berlin presently, and we also have a core group member in London. And this was our very first contribution to image making as a coalition, which is a GIF made by Mark Titchener about what we believe the idea of hands-off, the relationship to quote-unquote revolution means, which is a right to self-determination, a right to not be co-opted by certain what we consider xenophobic and racist policies that are also obviously detrimental to our environment. As we know, Earth Day is on Saturday. So this is our mission statement. The primary reaction that I think, and the primary thing that many people, including Hal Foster, who emailed me about this and is a big supporter of our coalition, said was the question is, what is the role of art today? We want to affirm the radical power of art, the radical role of art in shaping society. And we also want to understand how we can take this forward. I mean, certainly the actions of the avant-garde in the 60s were very central to changing the discourse and the conversation, which led to political change. So with that in mind and with that acknowledgement, we believe that image making can reverse the tide of a certain, shall we say, politically unsettling relationship to humanity in the 21st century. And these are the 2 questions which we'll come back to. Amy Khoshbin, who will be moderating the discussion, will be asking these. And these questions are part of a series of questions that we're asking in our different workshops. And the point of these workshops is really to ask questions of you, to say that we don't know what the answer is. We're not here to provide answers. We're here to work towards what we hope will be a toolkit for artists, creatives, people in cultural industries to respond to the contemporary political moment and to hear the voices of other individuals, both as a coalition and outside of those who are part of Hands Off Our Revolution, who want to intervene in the same discourse. So just to go over a few things that we're doing now that are kind of ready to announce, shall we say, keeping in mind that we weren't a coalition at the end of January. We've started, obviously, this workshop series, which is happening currently in Berlin, Chicago, London, and here in New York, as concurrently as we can. Usually it's the same week. We also here in New York are starting a performance series, and the first 2 performances will be on Friday and Saturday, and I'm sure that Amy will tell you more about that, since one of them is hers. We were invited to participate in the NSK State Pavilion. So if you don't know what the NSK State Pavilion is in Venice, it's a pavilion in time. And in this case, they give out passports and they ask individual artists, for example, Marina Abramovic has participated in the past. This was spearheaded in part by Slavoj Žižek about an idea of a state which did not exist territorially, but in time. And they will be issuing, not only do they issue passports to the artists, and in this case we participated as a coalition, they will also be issuing refugee passports with the cooperation of the local government in Venice. So that was obviously a wonderful opportunity. There are the passports. I'm still waiting for mine. So that's a little bit about it. Obviously, we can take questions later. There's them issuing passports. And we're also working with Creative Time in Venice. So One of our core members is going to be speaking. Anne-Marie Pena is going to be speaking in Venice with Creative Time about precisely this idea about the precarious position of artists, of the arts, of humanities, or of humanity full stop, in the relationship to the global rightward movement. And of course, precarious life, I think it's used very specifically, obviously, to refer to this question of humanity and justice that certainly Judith Butler brings up in her very famous work, if you don't know it. We are also involved in what's called the Summer of Hope, both in London and in New York. The Summer of Hope is a rejoinder to the Women's March. And so we will have forthcoming details on what we're doing for the Summer of Hope, which will be around July 5th, or the week of July 5th. We are participating in 2 exhibitions. This is just the information on the first of the 2 exhibitions in Scandinavia. In this case, this is opening in Malmo, and then it's going to Oslo. And I think we can stop there. So if you have any questions of or of me, or of our other members who are here, we are very happy to answer them. But I will give the floor up to Amy Khoshbin, who has very kindly offered to moderate. She was a speaker at our last workshop. And also to tell you, we will be doing another workshop here at a pending date sometime at the end of May, beginning of June. But without further ado, I will let Amy take the floor. She's a performance artist from here in New York. And as I said, she will be doing a performance on Friday as well to address certain issues of the power of protest, of methods of poetic response, and of certain global inequities. So thank you very much.
Hello. We're going to be talking later, so I'm just keeping it open. So I'll be moderating the evening's events tonight. Thank you to Brooke, thank you to Mitra, Thomas, and to IC. Because I know don't know what's going to happen, so let's lay it all out. I'm going to give a brief introduction. We're going to talk about these questions for a second. Then we're going to have 2 speakers. We're going to start with Quito Ziegler, and then we're going to have Tom McDonough. And during their talks, which will be about 15 to 20 minutes each, if you have any questions, just kind of hold them in your mind or write them down. And then we'll have a Q&A after the first 2 speakers where we really are encouraging audience participation. FYI, the event is being filmed, and this is so that all the events can go on ours YouTube channel, and so that we can see what's also going on in Berlin, Chicago, London, because these same questions are being posed in all 4 chapters, and they're having conversations internationally. So knowing that you're being recorded, please try to speak clearly. And then after that first session, we will have Katie Holton and Rachel Liebskin, and then we'll have a second Q&A after that, closing remarks, and then we can all mingle and meet each other. I wanted to just quickly introduce myself. So I was able to speak at the last hour workshop that FIT. It's cool, I speak loud. I got to speak about some of the projects that I'm working on. I'm an Iranian-American, New York-based video installation and performance artist, and I'm dealing with a lot of issues around our current political state, thinking about issues of fear-mongering against Middle Easterners, inclusivity, and how to work towards a different society, essentially, having those pictures in mind. So a few of the projects that I'm working on, one of which is running for city council in District 39 of Brooklyn. Because I think it's really interesting in terms of this idea of running for political office. You know, a lot of us feel like the system is broken and doesn't represent us, so how can we feel represented in our system, and how is that a platform for change. So that's one project, and I'd love to speak with you guys more about that. I also want to start a political party together, everyone, so that it is a platform for people who don't feel represented to have a voice. I also, and Brooke mentioned this, on Friday I'll be doing a performance at Layla Heller Gallery, which I really encourage all of you all to come to. It's part of a project called Word on the Street. So I started this project around similar to when this coalition started, the inauguration and the election, and I invited the writer Anne Carson, who's a poet that I really admire and love, to respond to the current political administration with a series of poetical phrases. And I created large-scale protest banners using those phrases as the language. We put them up in Kimmel Gallery at NYU, and we had a banner-making workshop for the opening that Basira Khan, who is in the audience, who's an amazing artist, was at. And the idea around the banner-making workshop, which is the performance that we will be doing again on Friday, was to engage the arts community in social action in some way. So how can we, through art making, and creation in a collective environment, actually start to feel socially engaged? So we're specifically for this workshop on Friday, there are 2 marches coming up, the March for Science on Earth Day, which is on Saturday, the People's Climate March on April 29th. There's also May Day coming up. So it's about coming and responding to the political environment in an honest way and making banners that you then have as art objects, but can also take out into the street to create fluidity between the institution and the street and have them as archival objects that can bounce between the two. This project will also be launching, the banners are going up in Times Square around July 4th, which is very exciting. So it's a way to subvert a lot of that advertising imagery you see with resistance language and imagery, which is very exciting, which I already said. So without further ado, I am really excited, and I want to keep this conversation somewhat informal, as we are going to hear talks that may be formal and have a lot of information in them. I want you guys to really feel free to respond and respond honestly in the moments that we have for that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Quito Ziegler. They're a Brooklyn-based artist and founding member of the Work Collective, WRRQ, who plays with gender, community organizing, glitter, radical imaginations, and their Nikon camera. Lately, they're particularly fond of collective movie making. They're organizing an annual intergenerational retreat for queer artists who are surviving or have survived transience and dreaming up the trans feminist world of the future. Their photographs from Brooklyn's radical queer transgender community were recently featured on the New York Times Lens blog. They produced 4 cycles of the Moving Walls photography exhibition at Open Society Foundations, where they also curated a permanent collection of human rights photography. They have curated a web gallery on lost transgender history for visual aids and are currently assisting with the exhibition Perpetual Revolution at the ICP, which you are at right now. So Quito had a hand in that. So without further ado, Quito Ziegler, everyone.